everybody, and welcome to Monday Motivation with Eugene Wood and myself, Sunil Osman. So, Eugene, what are we speaking about today?
Today's topic, we're talking about dealing with loss. So, it's quite an interesting conversation.
Yeah. It's a great conversation indeed. It's something very important. When we're speaking about loss, we're not speaking just about grief. We're speaking about business, finance, everything. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to click on the bell notification, subscribe. If you're watching this on IGTV, then go ahead and follow us and share this. And if you're joining us on TikTok, thank you very much for joining us. So the topic today is going to be dealing with loss. But first,
Sunny Motive, written by Sunil Osman, uses and explains motivational quotes to encourage readers of all ages to take bold steps in life, love, and business. Order your copy now by emailing Lauren Moy Publishing on sales@laurenmoypublishing.com.
Right, welcome back, everybody. And as we said, the topic is dealing with loss. And as we did say as well, this is not just about grief. It's about business. It's about love. It's about anything that you may feel you've lost. If you've lost a car, if you've lost a cat or a dog, or if you've lost your beard, how do you deal with these kinds of things? If you start losing your hair, what is happening? Because at the end of the day,
what is happening?
Well, there we go. There we go. Right. So, Eugene, do you want to kick off the topic for today and tell us a little bit about what your feelings are around this?
Well, dealing with loss, like at some stage, like we mentioned last week when we were talking about fear and stuff, that you're going to go through loss. At some stage in your life, there's going to be loss. And like I remember, now that you mentioned hair, such a small little thing, we're looking back at it now, but like I was like, no, I don't know if I want to like shave it all off and keep it shaved. So I kept it there as long as I possibly could because it was like a thing. But I had to eventually just go, well, actually, what are you gonna try? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're gonna have to just deal with that. And it did take a bit. Dealing with loss, like we're all gonna go through this at some stage. It's just inevitable. Like whether it's a parent, whether it's a dog, whether it's your favorite pet, canary, whatever the case might be, old school friend, we are going to go through a loss in our life. Some losses are harder to deal with and some take a long time, but eventually you're going to have to face that and deal with that in your life.
Yeah. So something which you've touched on which is quite important is that denial phase. You know, that oh, this is not happening, and then that often leads to things like anger. Feeling is not really real. For example, I'm also busy losing the hair. I know it's a silly example, but there we go. We're starting there. We start pretending it's not happening, and because of what society does to you, it puts you into a state where you might get depressed about. You might start getting anxiety about all these things we've spoken about. But one of the most important aspects, which I think you mentioned about dealing with loss right there, is the acceptance. Is the acceptance. And as Maria says here, patience is the key to stay calm. Absolutely. But there are various forms of loss. I mean, when you're losing somebody in your life through death, which has happened a lot in the past couple of months and over the past year, can you compare that kind of loss to the loss of, say, for example, a breakup? So you lose, because the way I see it, and it makes a lot of sense, is this becomes part of your life. It becomes part of your life. And when it's gone, it's not there anymore. And from a Reiki master perspective, you have an attachment to something, that you've grown with something, and you can't let go of the attachment. When the attachment just disappears, that is when the loss hits the hardest. It hits the hardest. I mean, there is a very, very nice quote, which I'm going to read to you. I'm going to read it word for word. And it goes like this. Every loss is a partial loss of who you are. Every loss is a partial loss of who you are. Because when you start having the family members around, when you start having the hair around, when you start having that relationship with somebody and it's gone, you've lost a part of you. So loss, as simple as the word may sound, is actually something really, really deep that some people just cannot deal with. And sometimes what people do, they live in that denial phase, or they just completely ignore the fact that the loss is there in order to carry on with.
Definitely. Like you talk now about the different phases: denial, anger, depression, acceptance, all those sort of phases. Yeah, like being able to accept those losses, like I touched on earlier, it's never going to be easy. Like there's so many processes before getting there, like the anger phase. Like a lot of people handle trauma, loss in various different ways. Like I know for myself, I'm probably the type of person that when there has been incidents in my life where I've lost something I really cared about, I just threw myself into certain things. The one time it was just, I just started cycling like 50 Ks every morning before work sort of thing. Out of nowhere, just started cycling. And that's just what I did for like 2 years. That was my new thing, because that loss, I needed a way to cope. And that was my way of coping, was just to get on a bicycle at 5:30 in the morning and cycle until 8 o'clock in the morning to go to work. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm ready now for the day. Like, you know what I mean? So like I did throw myself into a lot of that's the way I processed my loss at the time. But there was a lot of anger involved, a lot of depression involved before all those phases.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what some people do is that they totally ignore it. They just avoid it. But what they forget is that, like Maria said, you invest a part of you to a person or to a business or to whatever it may be. And when it's gone, you got to find ways to deal with it. And whether it's cycling at 5 till 8 in the morning, it's one of those things that just you have to do. One of the very important notes I've got here is that immerse yourself into something new. And maybe the cycling for you was something new. Maybe it's somebody doing meditation and breathing. And we lots of people saying here they ignore and just carry on. Most likely not the best way to deal. Exactly. Once you start ignoring, you're not dealing, you're not healing, and it's going to be with you for a long time. And then there will be a trigger that will come off. It's the unknown of loss and what it creates afterwards that changes making life. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what I find when we speak about grief, or when we speak about a breakup, or when we speak about something, when you are prepared for a loss, and I don't know if you ever noticed this, when somebody, for example, is suffering from, God forbid, cancer or something, you are preparing for them to go. You are preparing, you know they're going to die. You know somebody is really ill. You know a relationship is not going very well. But it's when we have those sudden losses, when you have that sudden loss, that is what triggers people the most, because they don't know how to deal with it. And that is when people start ignoring, moving on, not being able to deal with it. We are going to speak about some ways in which to deal with loss, but we're just going to take a quick pause. All right, welcome back, everybody, to Monday Motivation with Eugene Wood and myself, Sunil Osman. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to click on subscribe, the notifications, that little bell thing. And if you're watching this on IGTV, we thank you very much. Please follow us, share it. We load these videos 1 week later after we talk about it. So this is basically would be the video you're watching for a catch-up session or listening for a catch-up session. We are speaking about dealing with loss. We ended the last section saying that some people are not prepared. It's the suddenness of loss which gets to people. Now let's speak about ways to deal with loss. This is the hard part, because everybody deals with things differently, because everybody has a different approach to life. We've had people saying that they just ignore it, and they know it's not the best way to deal with it, but they still do it. So my question is, why do you still do it? Because sometimes you don't want to face that reality of the loss. There are days when I wake up and I still think that my grandmother is alive, for example. I know that she's passed on. I saw her pass away in front of my eyes. This topic is so relevant right now because last week it was a friend of mine's birthday who died in the beginning of this month, who passed away in the beginning of this month. And on her birthday is actually the 1-year anniversary for another friend that passed away, who literally her last words were, "Please thank Sunil for his friendship." These kind of things affect you emotionally, but there are some people who don't want to deal with it. And that is the scary part. When you don't want to deal with loss, there will be triggers throughout your life. And I've seen this from older people and younger people. I think about my dog, which I lost in 2004. And there are triggers where I'll still think about her because I haven't fully dealt with the fact that she's gone. When somebody cheats on you and you break a relationship, and then you don't deal with the fact that you were cheated on, you hide it, you ignore it, you're not dealing with the loss, you can't progress. But having said that, everybody is on their own journey and needs to approach dealing with loss in their own way. No textbook, no Eugene Wood, no Sunil Osman can tell you how to deal with loss.
There's no manual on this. There really isn't, and no loss is the same. That's one thing I've learned. Like, some people do process things in a different level than a lot of other people, but when it comes to like the death of a loved one, that is a loss that a lot of people, it's hard to get over that one, especially when it is a loved one, close loved one. Now, stuff like that, like when it's that sort of, it's about time. You're not going to heal yourself. You're not going to be able to deal with that loss overnight. It's a process. So being able to, like Sunil said earlier, if you can preempt, if you know it's coming, you can kind of, it makes it a micromillimeter easier. It doesn't make it easier. Okay. Yeah, like you're talking, but that's just, you can kind of prepare yourself for it. Like during lockdown, I stopped smoking cigarettes. Okay. But I had prepared myself. If these prices get to this, or if this happens, and I started preparing myself for that. And then the one day I just went, okay, enough's enough. Now, I'm not comparing my loss of smoking cigarettes to the loss of a loved one, but it takes time to heal all wounds. But if you don't take that time to heal those wounds, you're never going to heal. And you're never going to be able to be whole in another relationship or anything like that. Now, I know we're getting a little bit deep and we're talking about loss of loved ones, but it's the same thing with the loss of a relationship. Like, if you get cheated on, that hurt is like, oh, it's so much worse than if it was like, it kind of just fizzled out. Then that loss isn't as bad. Yes, you're accustomed to this person being so in your life, and there's a little bit of loss there. And so knowing at what level of loss and denial and aggression and everything you are at is key to you actually healing from that loss.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's somebody that says here that sometimes you don't want to deal with it, but life needs to move on. Yes, life needs to move on. Our producer, Maria, you speak about time and people need to deal with it. Sometimes you will never get fully over something, but acknowledging that is so important. She says 25 years now since her brother passed away, and she still can't deal with the loss. And that it's hard. It's hard when somebody who's been part of your life, in your own blood, you know. And listen, see, loss is a natural part of life, yes. So
yeah, like I said when we opened, we're all gonna deal with loss at some stage in our life. It's inevitable. It's one of those things that you're going to have to deal with. How you deal with that really comes down to who you are.
Yeah. So some solutions, just some solutions we can throw out there, which has been provided to us by our producer. One of the most important ones, I think, is taking your time. It is all your journey, your path. You need to take your time, and you can choose to allow somebody to help you with that. You can choose to go and take a trip, go on a holiday, stay active, do something that's going to immerse yourself, to do something new for yourself. When it comes to something like a relationship, the loss may destroy you. You may feel destroyed, but once you start healing from that, it is an opportunity to construct a new you, find out what you don't want, what you do want. And it's so important to acknowledge that. But I think one of the most important things with loss, whether it's business, whether it's relationship, whether it's family, is to take your own time. And if that time is going to be for the rest of your life, as long as you're dealing with it, it's so important. There's a very nice comment here that says, energy cannot be created or just shape and form. It's a very deep. I mean, I understand that from a Reiki master perspective. But for somebody who doesn't understand what that actually means, it is so important to know that when it comes to grief, for example, that the soul is eternal. When you lose a relationship, there are reasons it happens. If there are two people who are truly in love with each other and they have issues or whatever, and they're willing to work through it, that is not a loss, that's a gain. You start learning about what you want. But you get those people who give up on relationships way too quickly in an instant gratification society. And that instant gratification, that loss of relationship is actually not a loss, it is just terrible. We've lost old school love, for example. But that's another topic for another day.
Yeah, that's another whole can of worms right there.
Whole can of worms right there. So I don't know if you want to start from.
As you said, though, one of the things that's really stuck by me for a while now is everyone's on their own journey. And I'll take it a little bit further and say everyone's on their own journey at their own time. Okay, because this is something that I couldn't grasp at one stage. Like, why wouldn't you want better for yourself? Everyone's on their own journey at their own time. And yeah, so it's just something that's really stuck by me, and you've mentioned it now, and it is something that it's going to take time, regardless of whatever your journey is and whatever your path is. It's going to take time. You're going to have lots of ups and downs, lots of heartache, lots of happiness and joys and depression and sadness and a whole bunch of things and loss. It's going to happen, but at the end of the day, you have the power in your own self to deal with a lot of those aspects, especially loss. Will it be easy? No, it won't. Will it be worth it?
Yeah.
Yes, it will, because you'll be working on yourself, and that, to me, is key.
Yeah. So one of the things I speak about quite a bit, and you might have picked up a trend in my captions I make on my videos, is I speak about awareness. And awareness is not just about an awakening journey. Awareness is about being aware of things like if you don't heal or you don't deal with something, you're not going to grow. You're going to be stuck. And that's when those triggers kick off. And it's very important, I mean, just to conclude with this topic, that we acknowledge one of the big things that we've said here over and over again, that everybody's on their own journey. And you have to want to be able to deal with it. You have to want to be able to deal with a loss in order to actually deal with it and acknowledge it. It may break your heart. It may make you feel happy. It may make you feel new. You will have a realization. And from an energy perspective, when you start dealing and healing with about something, you have this freedom of the soul, which I cannot explain unless you start doing it.
Mm.
So anybody out there who is currently dealing with loss, there are many ways in which you can deal with it. Whether it's business, whether it's a relationship, whether it is loss of followers on social media, whatever it may be. Take your time. Take your time, acknowledge it. But at the end of the day, it is up to you if you want to heal and you want to deal. If you want to live in a bubble and you want to live in denial, it is your life and your choice. One of the most powerful things we have is the power of choice. And you
100%.
can choose whether you want to deal with the loss or not. And sometimes dealing with the loss doesn't mean healing completely. Sometimes it just means acknowledging that the loss has happened. The loss has happened.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So that is it from me for today's Monday motivation. Eugene, do you want to say anything else?
Well, no, I think you pretty much summed it up, yeah. And Sonia, says, it's a choice. It is, and that's knowing that it is your choice. Whichever your choice is, it's still your choice. That's one of the greatest gifts we've been given, is the power of choice. So,
okay. So, Producer Maria, do you want to type there what our topic is going to be for next week, please? And while we're doing that, I think Eugene can edit this part out.
Honesty and trust.
Honesty and trust. So there we go. So next week, it will be honesty and trust on Monday Motivation with Eugene Wood and Sunil Osman. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, please click on the subscribe, notifications, IGTV, follow us, share. We thank you very much for joining us. And we're looking forward to next week as well. We're going to speak about honesty and trust, a big one yet again. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining, for watching. Eugene, thanks for looking good and shaving your head. Here we are. Love and light to everybody.
Cool. Thank you very much. Have a good day, yeah? Take care, guys.
Yeah. Bye.